Look carefully at the world around you. Kindness does not guarantee protection. Loyalty does not guarantee reward. Honesty does not guarantee victory. Every day, someone quieter, colder, and more strategic moves ahead, while others wonder why they were left behind. Behind smiles, there are calculations. Behind praise, there is comparison. Behind support, there is often silent competition. Life is not always loud. The real battles are silent, and the most dangerous losses happen without warning. 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli watched this same pattern unfold. He saw loyalty collapse into betrayal. He saw leaders rise, and he saw them fall. He understood something most people refuse to accept. Power does not belong to the loud. Power belongs to the strategic. If he walked into today's world, he would not complain. He would observe, adapt, position himself carefully, and before anyone realized it, he would be impossible to replace. These are 21 modern rules of power inspired by that mindset. Master them, and your presence will change without you saying a word. You will not demand respect. You will carry it. Rule 1. Preserve your mystery. Most people reveal far too much, far too soon. They share their plans openly, expose their fears honestly, and explain themselves freely, believing transparency always builds trust. Sometimes it does, but it also hands others a detailed map of your interior, and maps can be used for navigation or for ambush. When people fully understand your patterns, triggers, and limits, they begin adjusting to manage you. Your strengths get anticipated. Your vulnerabilities get stored for later. Mystery removes that advantage from them entirely. When you cannot be categorized easily, you cannot be controlled easily. This isn't about dishonesty or artificial coldness. It's about recognizing that not every thought requires expression, and not every person has earned access to your inner world. Speak less than feels natural. Listen more than seems necessary. Let people wonder about you rather than fully understand you. That wondering creates a quiet respect that complete transparency never produces. Rule 2. Emotional discipline is the foundation of all other power. Every visible emotional reaction is information handed freely to whoever is watching. When anger surfaces, you reveal exactly where you can be pushed. When desperation shows, you advertise your dependence. When anxiety leaks into your behavior, you invite people to press harder, knowing the pressure is landing. Composure gives nothing away. The person who remains steady while others escalate holds a real advantage without exerting visible force. They think more clearly, decide more soundly, and appear more formidable simply by staying calm when others cannot. This is a buildable skill, not a fixed personality trait. When you feel the pull toward a reactive response, pause before speaking. That small gap between stimulus and response is where better outcomes live. Over time, that pause becomes instinct, and the composure others observe stops being effort and becomes genuinely who you are. Rule 3. Become someone who cannot be easily replaced. Likability is a fragile foundation. People like others for shifting, circumstantial reasons, and when circumstances change, warmth often follows. Usefulness is structural. When your skills and judgment consistently solve real problems that would persist without you, your position becomes load-bearing, and people don't remove load-bearing elements lightly. The path to genuine indispensability is simple, even if slow. Become demonstrably excellent at something that genuinely matters to others. Develop capabilities that require real experience and judgment, not just instruction. Become the person that specific problems get routed to, not because you've marketed yourself cleverly, but because results have made the routing obvious. When your absence creates a problem nobody quite knows how to solve, your presence carries a weight that no amount of charm alone could manufacture. Rule 4. Let your outcomes speak before you do. The person who announces their plans loudly and in detail often finds that the announcement substitutes for the action. Describing a goal delivers enough psychological satisfaction to quietly drain the energy required to pursue it. The preview replaces the film. Beyond the personal cost, there is a strategic one. Visible plans attract interference. Competitors adjust. Skeptics organize their doubts in advance. People decide how they feel about your success before you've achieved it. And opposition that forms early is harder to move than opposition that never had the chance to organize. The discipline of working quietly and revealing results, not intentions, changes the reception entirely. A completed thing answers its critics automatically. Let results introduce you after the fact. Surprise, deployed with patience, remains one of the most underrated strategic advantages available. Rule 5. Act at the right moment, not the comfortable one. Hesitation disguises itself as prudence, as preparation, as waiting for better conditions that keep failing to materialize. But there is a specific point in most situations where additional waiting stops adding value and starts subtracting it, where readiness tips into avoidance without ever announcing the transition. Perfect conditions are almost never what creates successful outcomes. Sufficient conditions, met with decisive action at the right moment, are. The skill lies in distinguishing between the two, in recognizing when you have prepared enough and the window is open, versus when you genuinely need more time. Develop that instinct deliberately. Reflect on moments when waiting cost you. Build awareness of the difference between patience and paralysis. Those who master the timing of action participate fully in their own lives. Those who don't spend most of it watching from the side. Rule 6. Protect your reputation as a serious asset. Your name arrives in rooms before you do. Before you speak or demonstrate anything directly, people have already formed expectations based on what they've heard and observed. Those expectations determine how much credibility you start with, how much benefit of the doubt you receive, and whether the default is welcome or resistance. Reputation is deeply asymmetric. It builds slowly and erodes quickly. A single significant lapse in judgment, one visible act of unreliability, or a public association with chaos can undo years of careful construction in a short time. The common threats are well known, but consistently underestimated in the moment. Unnecessary conflict, broken promises, claims that exceed your actual capabilities, association with people or situations that carry negative weight. None feel catastrophic when they happen. All of them accumulate. Guard your name as the durable strategic resource it genuinely is. Rule 7. Protect your plans until they are real. An idea in its early stages is extraordinarily fragile. It hasn't met reality yet. It contains untested assumptions and requires sustained energy that outside input, even well-meaning input, can easily fragment. Share it too soon, and you expose it to doubt before it has the strength to answer doubt, competition before it has the lead to defend, and the subtle psychological effect of feeling accomplished before accomplishing anything. Work privately. Build without broadcasting. Let the thing reach a point where it speaks for itself before introducing it to an audience. A finished project answers critics automatically in a way a plan never can. A business already producing results addresses skepticism more convincingly than any pitch ever will. Reveal outcomes. Protect the process. That sequence consistently produces better results than the reverse. Rule 8. Your absence is part of your presence. Constant availability has a hidden cost. When people can access you at any moment without effort, your presence stops registering as significant. It becomes expected, then invisible, then taken for granted. What is never withheld is never truly valued. Strategic absence reintroduces the question of whether they have your attention, and that question, once alive, changes how your attention is received. When you are selectively present rather than constantly available, people notice. They begin to consider what your engagement means and what losing it would feel like. This extends beyond social dynamics. The person who arrives fully focused and genuinely engaged creates more impact than the person who is always present but never quite there. Choose which rooms require you. Decline the others without apology. Presence that isn't constant is presence that actually registers. Rule 9. Opposition is confirmation. Meaningful resistance rarely targets people who are going nowhere. When you are genuinely building something, moving in a direction that matters, growing in ways that create new capabilities, you attract opposition. That opposition is often the most reliable confirmation that your trajectory is worth something. Reframing resistance this way is not simply motivational, it is practical. When you treat criticism as information rather than injury, you extract value from it. Hostile feedback sometimes contains accurate observations. Active resistance sometimes reveals genuine blind spots worth addressing. The person who can receive opposition with composure, sort the signal from the noise, and refine accordingly, is using adversity as a resource. The goal is not to seek conflict or enjoy it. It is simply to stop being derailed by it, to move through resistance rather than stopping to fight every battle that presents itself. Rule 10. Trust carefully and maintain your own foundation. People change, circumstances shift, priorities evolve. The person fully aligned with your interests 2 years ago is operating under entirely different pressures today. This is not betrayal as a character flaw. It is change as a constant. Treating loyalty as permanent when it is situational is a reliable source of preventable pain. This is not an argument for cynicism. Genuine loyalty exists and is worth honoring. But even within relationships of real depth, your own capacity for independence, your ability to stand on your own resources, judgment and capabilities, is not a threat to connection. It is its most stable foundation. The person who has built meaningful self-reliance brings something real to every relationship. Their trust means something because it clearly isn't compelled by need. Build that foundation, and everything built on top of it becomes more honest and more durable. Rule 11. Let your standards define your value. What costs nothing tends to be treated accordingly. When your approval, time and attention are freely available to anyone without condition, people assign them little weight. The effort required to obtain something is a large part of what signals its worth. High standards, consistently maintained, communicate that your genuine engagement must be earned rather than assumed. This doesn't mean performing coldness or withholding warmth strategically. It means actually having standards. Real ones about how you spend your time and what you engage with, and holding them consistently rather than abandoning them under social pressure. The result is not fear, but clarity. People understand what earns your real engagement and what doesn't. Relationships built on that clarity are more honest and more durable than those built on endless accommodation, because both people understand what they actually have. Rule 12. Silence is a form of communication. In a world of constant output, silence has become genuinely rare, and because it is rare, it has become unusually powerful. The person who speaks constantly conditions others to filter much of what they say. Words become expected noise, but the person who speaks selectively is listened to differently. Their contributions carry weight precisely because they are not constant. Beyond impact on others, silence is a tool for gathering information. Every moment spent speaking is a moment not spent hearing. People reveal themselves continuously in what they emphasize, what they avoid, how their tone shifts. The careful observer who says little accumulates insights the eager talker simply never has access to. Not everything requires a response. Some situations resolve themselves if left alone. The discipline of knowing when to add nothing is as valuable as knowing what to say. Rule 13. Address small problems before they become large ones. Small problems do not usually resolve themselves. They grow comfortable in the space available and expand into whatever additional space they find. The colleague whose behavior is slightly problematic becomes a genuine obstacle. The boundary that was tested and not defended gets tested further, then harder. The pattern ignored early requires far more effort to correct later. The natural tendency to avoid uncomfortable early interventions, hoping things improve on their own, telling yourself the tension isn't worth creating, is almost always the more expensive choice. Early correction, while the cost is still modest and the conversation still manageable, is consistently preferable to the larger correction that becomes necessary when the problem has matured. Develop tolerance for the mild discomfort of addressing things while they're still small. That discomfort is the cheap version. The alternative is greater discomfort later, with fewer options and longer recovery. Rule 14. Be selective about which battles you enter. Not every conflict that invites your participation deserves it. Some disagreements are genuinely trivial, noise dressed as signal, designed more to provoke reaction than to resolve anything meaningful. Some competitions aren't worth winning. Some arguments, even ones you could win decisively, cost more in time and energy than the victory is worth. The ability to look at a potential conflict and ask honestly whether engaging serves your actual interests, not your momentary ego, not your desire to be right, but your considered longer-term interests, is among the most practically useful skills available. It requires setting aside the reactive pull toward engagement and asking simply, what do I gain by winning this, and what does it cost me to try? Reserve your full energy for battles that genuinely matter. Arrive at those battles with resources intact. Rule 15. Your composure is your most visible asset. In high-pressure situations, how you carry yourself is observed quickly and interpreted immediately. People read posture, expression, and demeanor and draw conclusions that shape how they treat you from that point forward, usually before you've said a single word in explanation. The person who unravels visibly during difficulty teaches others that difficulty unravels them. The person who maintains their bearing, who continues to function with apparent clarity when circumstances are genuinely hard, teaches something very different. They teach that they can be relied upon, that they are built for pressure, that they will not collapse when things get complicated, which is the only condition under which anyone's real qualities are ever tested. This capacity is built through repeated practice, through consciously holding the standard when abandoning it would be easier. Over time, steadiness stops being effort and becomes character. Rule 16. Build your capabilities before building your audience. There is pressure in the current moment to be visible, to document progress, broadcast development, and build an audience for work that is still finding its footing. The validation that follows can feel like confirmation. It can also substitute the feeling of progress for the reality of it, and create public commitments that make honest reassessment harder. Building quietly, developing seriously without announcement, is slower in visible milestones, but produces a fundamentally different foundation. Skills developed without performance pressure are more honestly calibrated. Capabilities built without an audience are built to actual standard rather than to appearance. There is a specific confidence that comes from knowing your abilities are real because you have tested them privately and honestly, not because others have validated them. That confidence doesn't require constant reinforcement. It is the most stable variety available. Rule 17. Establish your limits clearly and hold them. Respect is not accumulated automatically. It is established through consistent signals about what you will and will not accept, through the clarity of your standards as demonstrated by your behavior over time, not by your words in any single moment. When boundaries are absent or inconsistently enforced, people do what humans naturally do with open space. They move into it. Not always deliberately, but because available space tends to get occupied. And once someone has learned through experience that your stated limits are negotiable, changing that pattern requires considerably more effort than establishing a clear one would have required from the start. Every interaction teaches people what kind of relationship you're going to have. Your behavior in those interactions writes the curriculum. Teach carefully, because the lessons accumulate in both directions. Rule 18. Manage the information you share. Every piece of information you share about your thinking, plans, or vulnerabilities is a resource the recipient can use, and will, consciously or not, in ways that serve their interests rather than necessarily yours. This is not cynicism. It is simply how information operates in competitive environments. The discipline is not dishonesty, but intentionality. Thoughtful people consider what serves the conversation and the relationship, share that, and hold back what doesn't. They distinguish between contexts that call for openness and those that reward discretion. They recognize that sharing everything impulsively, treating every thought as requiring immediate external expression, creates vulnerability without sufficient return. Information shared selectively actually means more. It signals genuine trust precisely because it isn't reflexive. Share intentionally, and what you share carries real weight. Rule 19. Actively remove what diminishes you. Every person operates within an environment, physical, social, psychological, and that environment shapes them more powerfully and continuously than most acknowledge. The habits you maintain, the spaces you inhabit, the people you are regularly around, all of these exert consistent pressure on who you are and what you're capable of becoming. Protecting your development requires more than adding good things. It requires removing damaging ones, the habit that costs your clarity, the environment that pulls toward your worst tendencies, the relationship that depletes more than it sustains, the content that distorts your perception or consumes hours that won't return. Removing these things is not harshness. It's honest maintenance of a system you care about. You are substantially responsible for your environment, because your environment is substantially responsible for you. Act on that without guilt. Rule 20. Keep evolving past other people's definitions of you. Every person who interacts with you regularly forms a mental model of who you are, your capabilities, your limits, your typical responses. That model is built from experience, and it is always, to some degree, a portrait of who you were rather than who you currently are. People tend to respond to their model of you rather than to your actual current self. They stop registering new information clearly because existing expectations are doing the interpretive work. This creates a quiet constraint. The people who have known you longest can sometimes see you least accurately. Continued genuine growth, not announced or performed, but real, keeps you ahead of those categories. You remain interesting because you remain genuinely unpredictable. Your potential stays open because you haven't allowed anyone's fixed expectations, including your own, to quietly become your ceiling. Rule 21. Create value that lasts beyond the moment. Recognition is pleasant, but requires constant renewal. It is given for what is currently visible and fades when something else occupies attention. The effort of maintaining it is energy not available for building anything of genuine substance. Legacy operates differently. Work that genuinely helps people, skills that add value long after their creation, a reputation for integrity built across years. These things do not require constant performance. They compound quietly, gaining weight over time, rather than losing it. Build your capabilities as though they will matter in 20 years, because the ones you build today are precisely the ones that will define what you are capable of then. Create work as though the best of it might reach people you haven't met yet. That orientation toward durability over immediacy produces a fundamentally different quality of effort, and over time, a fundamentally different life. Real power, not the performance of it, but the genuine capacity to shape your environment and move through the world on your own terms, is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in accumulated decisions made consistently over long stretches of time, most of them unwitnessed and unrewarded in the short term. It grows in the habit of working when no one is watching. It strengthens in the discipline of holding your standard when lowering it would be easier. It reveals itself not in how you behave when circumstances are favorable, but in the quality of your judgment when they are not. And it compounds, which means the person who begins building it earlier, even imperfectly, arrives somewhere fundamentally different from the person who keeps waiting for the right conditions. None of this requires you to become someone you are not. It requires awareness of yourself, of the environments you move through, of the gap between how you intend to show up and how you actually are, and then, consistently, the small corrections that close that gap. Start where you are. Work with what you have. Move quietly, build seriously, and let the results speak when they're ready. That is enough. That has always been enough. And in time, it is everything.